Axiom of Choice by Literally Mad Lad on AO3. Episode 13. Chapter 5. It it's an innocent science experiment, I swear. For science. The intruder returned on 3 other occasions before the water could get too cold to swim in. Katsuki loathed every second of it. He hated the feeling of alcohol in his gills, and he started to visit the pool less frequently to avoid it. Deku's new filtering system was expensive, but took a day to compress for the college kids' visits. The habits of the fish in the ecosystem started to change, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it was an inconvenience nonetheless. It became difficult to hunt, and Katsuki couldn't figure out why until he was drawn to a baited hook near the tunnel entrance. Deku had warned him about the kids fishing, but truthfully, he didn't quite understand what that meant, or the fact that it affected him. He wasn't an idiot, but he was still pissed. The fish were his and his alone. Not to mention, the rotten bastards were walking all over Deku. The electric fence was put on hold after some of the kids took the fresh lumber and used it for a bonfire outside of the cave. As if the filtering system wasn't expensive enough. Katsuki glowered at the hook from the shadows. Out of view from the dock, he backtracked, an irritated click grating at his jaw. He circled around to the second entrance, which gave him a clear line of sight to the dock where the kids were sitting on the edge, one with a pole between his legs, and the other in her underwear. There was a foul smell in the air that Katsuki grimaced at. It smelled like the underside of a rotten catfish carcass, and it had Katsuki's fresh, clean air in a chokehold. The rest of the pool was calm, all except for Katsuki, who felt like his blood was boiling out through the pores of his skin and oozing between his scales. The sharp fan of fins spiked up the length of his spine. They spent skating every surface of his skin that was exposed to it before he dipped back underneath. The sensation didn't leave. The past year had been the single best stunt of Katsuki's life. He had loathed to have it smudged by some idiots who didn't even belong there. Deku didn't want them there. They pushed the assistant even further away than she already was, and Katsuki certainly didn't want them. If this was his territory, then he'd be well damn better to defend it. He reconsidered that statement immediately. It had been his territory, at one point, and he defended it. And he was damn good at it, too. But Deku was persistent and a bastard, and though he never won in combat, he was the one maintaining the territory. He was the one providing Katsuki meals. He was the one who strolled into Katsuki's den like he owned it. If Deku wanted to get rid of them, he could have done it himself, Katsuki thought. But he had fought Deku before. The nerd couldn't land a solid hit, even if he tried. Katsuki knew Deku's stance on intruders, though, and if given the chance, Katsuki figured Deku wouldn't mind if they weren't around anymore. Katsuki returned to the hook, which lay sunk down in the shade. Though his eyesight was foggy, he caught a glimpse of the sunlight and the clear cord that it was attached to. He reached out for the cord and hooked his fingers around it. And then he heaved. The kid on the dock pulled back with a shout of excitement. Katsuki gritted his teeth together, the cord pinching his skin, with his other hand hooked by his wrist, hiring up the wire and rounding it back and forth, with a bristle of his tail. The wire yanked taut, straining, and when it struck the rocks on the wall in the cave, it stung in the water. Katsuki pulled the cord around the corner, and the instant he did, the tension snapped. He whipped around the corner, momentum barreling him out into the pool, where the resonating splash sent a cascade of bubbles up from where his prey had fallen in the water. Katsuki broke through the wall of bubbles in an instant. The split second of clarity his prey had surfaced, a scream. Squinted eyes widening in horror just before Katsuki's opened his manacles, clamped up on the kid's fleshy shoulder. His teeth pierced into solid, dense muscle. Tuna couldn't compare to the pop of warm liquid that dissolved into his tongue. It was hot and thick, and it painted the walls of euphemisms the instant he ripped his head back and took a chunk of flesh with him. Whatever fight his prey put up faded quickly. The panic kicks did little to push him away from Katsuki, whose fins had sliced through the meat of the kid's legs, sending ribbons of red up to Katsuki's still burning alphalese. The flavor, though, was rich with iron. It was metallic and seemed to soak every parched fiber of his tongue. As if vengeance didn't taste good enough, he needed more. He dove into the kid's back, which had twisted to get away, his stomach facing the ground as he sunk under. He clawed at the surface with one hand, the other arm dangling by a thread of the tension and bone. The singular structure of the kid's stomach gave way to a solid ombre crunch as his jaw and teeth demolished the kid's vertebrae. When Katsuki's head surfaced from the gore, he was made aware of the girl's voice screaming at the door at the cave. The kids had gone limp against him, and before he could go cold, Katsuki started to polish off his kill. It began to grow black around the time Katsuki had grown fully. The remains of the carcass was carted away into an undesolated location, except for the best part of the meat, which he left on the dock for Deku. Katsuki took to circling the pool, which helped disperse some of the less desirable substances from the water. His attempt to leave the water was met with rocks being thrown in his direction, which he didn't particularly care for. The chances of going fully blind were higher out there, and their consequences his speed and agility would compromise. He could do it, though. He hadn't practiced crossing the ground in a while, since the assistant had warned against it. Odds were, he would wreck his verbal friends in the process, and he didn't like the idea of that. The moon was bright that night, so Katsuki could see her huddled against the door. She had stopped sobbing an hour ago, and had gone completely quiet. Like Katsuki didn't have the best ears known to mankind. He could all but hear her bated breath, shuddering out after each calculated inhale. He flipped his tail irritably on the surface. His clicks had grown grained, like metal draping against a rock, or like tires against a gravel far away from the cave. He was the first to hear Deku's car door slams shut. When Deku's footsteps approached the door, Katsuki reared up against the dock, his hands braced on the wood as the girl leapt to her feet. The instant the door was unlocked, she wrenched it open and dove past Deku. She tripped with a shriek as Deku cried, Hey, what's wrong?" There's Monoma, She stammered, pointing back at the pool. She took several steps back, out of view of where Katsuki leaned against the dock. Deku took one look at him, and the head on the dock. One look was all it took. "We need to call the police!" she screamed, voice wrenched in a sob. Deku was shocked still. His hands were still on the door, eyes drifting along whatever train of thought pulled back from the door and out into the grass. He shut the door as he said, "I have my phone and a rifle in my car. We can take it out while the police are on the way." This is not what I was expecting. I was expecting to have to skip parts. Okay. At first I thought, okay, Katsuki's gonna attack. They're gonna have to, do something. Motherfucker killed Monoma. Motherfucker killed Monoma. What? I'm shell-shocked. Hold up. Also, I have not read ahead. I kind of stopped at that point. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stop there. I have my phone and a rifle in the car. We could take care of it while the police are on the way. I thought it would be evil to end it there, and also evil because I'm pretty sure Izuku's not gonna kill Katsuki. Izuku's done a lot. I mean, taking Katsuki from a lab facility into a cave system thingy, yeah, that had to have broken some rules. And has to get him, especially if, it was the government holding Katsuki. That gives him into huge trouble. So, Izuku's already willing to do certain stuff to break the law. what's stopping him from taking care of this little itty bitty problem? Just saying. It'd be interesting. I did not think that this was. I'm so shell-shocked. Okay. As always, my brain drops. Make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.